Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly for you of this big guy right here. This is the CRKT Panache. This is a Ken Onion design, really weird piece, much higher end than I'm used to from CRKT, but very interested to see how it is on the inside there. Before we get any further though, one thing to highlight is that this guy is quite nearly on center, maybe slightly favoring the show side, and the action on it is good, but not amazing. I could definitely see this getting a little love, and there is also some lock stick in there. So my hope is that once we give this guy a little bit of loving, so to speak, that it will run a little bit nicer. But as it stands, not so bad off. Very, very interesting. Another one of the higher-end pieces from CRKT. And as you all know, and frankly, as I've told CRKT, I couldn't support this more for them because they are a company who has so many of these really cool designs, but they are so often made to these really abysmally low price points. And so the thought of being able to get some of CRKT's cool designs at prices that are a little bit more accessible, at quality levels that are a little bit more interesting to higher end collectors, while still offering them at prices that are a little more accessible to your everyday person. Oh man, that's great. And so, you know, the idea of having both a high-end and a budget-friendly version of any given pocket knife, or at least of some of their better designs, that's good. It is unfortunately a limited edition, and I didn't know that before it was sent to me. And so this is not going to be subject to my normal new rule of I'm not super interested in limited runs. But you know what? It's sort of a thing. All right, my goal here is to get this off, and I'm using this little plastic spudger now to try and get up under this piece of G10 there. Yep, oh, Phillips head? Well, okay, that was not what I expected to find. Heavily skeletonized. Let's go ahead and pop out the back here. That's T8. All right, beautiful. And now I need to find small Phillips head bits. This is a time when you want a set of many bits handy around, because yeah, okay, good. I have small Phillips. Yeah, it looks about right. Double odd Phillips should do. Because you know occasionally you do get surprised by things like this, and you should never try and use the wrong tool for a job like this, especially when you're working with a higher end piece. Whoa there, those are freaking tiny. You absolutely want to avoid doing things like stripping out your screws, etc. Why are you not wanting to come along? Could that be... Do I need to remove the scale on the other side here, or is it just out of play? Oh, no. Okay, that's what's going on. This side is the free-spinning side. This side has the barrel spacer, but I think this should actually let me get this knife apart. The reason I'm doing it from this side is so that way I don't have to take the clip off as well. The fewer screws I can remove, generally speaking, the better life is. All right, using this little spudger again to kind of pop things apart here. And we are disassembling ourselves in process. Really, we are always disassembling. Holy crap, this thing is running on snot. All right. So, and then, oh yeah, there's another screw underneath there, but one of these. Oh, both, crap. All right, so what I'm just noticing is that I'm in it for the full affair now, because this side actually came unscrewed. Both, so I do need to actually remove the scales as well as both sides here. This is T6. And then I'll put the clip off to the side here. I'll remove these further 3 T6s. Put you there. And I'm using, by the way, I've got a little organizer mat that gives me a way to kind of reorient things on the knife, so that way I'm putting the right screws back in the right places. But yeah, it looks like I need to take off both sides of this in order to do this service, which is not stellar, but it is what it is. Okay. Luckily on this side, I can use this to get up under here and pop this bit of G10 out. There we go. And that gives me access to these 2 Phillips screws to either side, and then we can clear out the chicken grease. Oh boy, somebody ground that lock face a little hard there. Okay, hopefully though we will be able to get this guy in much better shape than it is currently, because what I'm seeing here is not only what looks to be a bad lubrication job, but just, yeah, hopefully we're going to be able to do this well. That cutout in the lock bar is really weird. Oh, it's probably because that's maybe what they had to do, because there is this extra ridge here, and the lock bar relief is internal. Very interesting, very weird. Okay, so that part is clean. Let's go ahead and clean this part here. This is one of those days when I kind of wish I had like an ultrasonic parts cleaner. A lot of people say, hey, Nick, why don't you just invest? This is what you do. But the thing is, at some level, if you need an ultrasonic parts cleaner to do this, that's going to make it less accessible to a bunch of people. So I've always resisted that urge, even though, God, it would be nice just to, like, drop in all of this. And I know it's, higher in frequency than that. Like freaking 40 hertz. No, not even. Anyways, probably... 7 hertz there? Anyways, I freaking digress. You have a, 7 seems high. You're using the ultrasound there to clean those off, and that'd be great. That'd be useful for me, but at another level, it's also, I want to be doing the same thing that you could be doing at home on your kitchen table. So, yeah, that's kind of my method behind my madness here, or at least the madness behind my method. I don't really vouch for this being either way. So yeah, there's that. Next thing, I want to clean off the bearings. So I'll go ahead and put some rubbing alcohol. And did I already talk about nickshabazz.com/tools today? Well, that's where I list all my tools, which do not include ultrasound or ultrasonic cleaners. All right, this is a single piece. It's kind of cool looking. Really, really dirty. Wow. Really dirty. Clean this off. Hopefully this is going to run a lot better once I put everything back together here. But not a trivial process. Okay, so we are cleaned up here. Next thing I'm going to do is take this had some pretty serious lock stick. So what I'm going to do to address that is I'm going to put a coating of, this is actually just a generic well, not generic, but your normal everyday life Sharpie marker, permanent marker sort of affair. I'm going to put a coating of it on there. I'm also going to put a coating of it on the lock face. The lock face appears like it has been carbonized, maybe, but it doesn't really feel like it, so I'm going to go ahead and do this as well. I don't 100% understand why using a little bit of permanent marker on the lock face makes as big of a difference as it does, but it really generally does. This seems to be, I've advised using like electrician's oxidization prevention compound before, but honestly, in my experience, most of the time, the Sharpie does just as well. And so I'm applying it to both surfaces here, and I'm applying a variety of coats to it, so it's really kind of on there thick. It may not end up fixing the issue here, but I do want to do my absolute damnedest to make it a thing. To get rid of it, that is. So let's go ahead and do that. Next step, how the heck do I put this back together? Okay. We are going to put this back together. One thing to note is that this guy has a D shape to it, so we're going to put this back together from the bottom, from the show side up. So what I'm going to do is start off by retightening this, making sure that's in position. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this barrel right here, and then I'm going to tighten this into place. There is literally no advantage to putting this G10 portion back in position until the very end. So I'm not going to bother doing that quite yet. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in the pivot here. And because this is D-shaped, it makes most sense to put it in. And because this is the non-tooled portion, makes most sense to put this in from this side. Okay, good. So that's our start here. For some reason, there was a spacer on... Oh, this... Okay, yeah, there's a washer that goes over here as well. And I'll wipe that off real quick with a piece of off-screen camera. Piece of off-screen cotton pad. There we go. So that's in position now as well. Now, I'm going to put this guy back together using some 10-weight nano oil here, mostly for the longevity of it. Knife pivot lube would work fine. Daiwa reel oil. Lots of good options here. The reel oil is a real economical choice. Okay. And drop this into position here. That was hilarious, by the way, in case any of you were unaware. Okay. Now I go ahead and I put a little lubrication right here. Where's my stop pin? The stop pin is over here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop the stop pin in over here just so we're building everything up from one side here. Now I drop the blade onto the pivot, and what we see here is that's working. Okay, backspacer. Backspacer goes here. Beautiful. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead, and that was a completely capricious, or unnecessary, gratuitous is the word I was looking for, not capricious. Bit of oil there. Here you go, here you go. Actually, I'm going to clean some of that up because that's a little much. Like, even for my standards. That oil in the detent ball path there will lubricate the, in the detent ball hole will lubricate the detent ball path, which is a good thing. Tends to run things a little smoother, and especially now that we won't be running on some thick grease, life will be better. Okay, beautiful. Now what am I missing? These screw holes here are for the G10. Okay. Okay. This little insert here is in place. That's good. I'll put a little on the detent ball itself, and we'll drop this into place. All right. Now comes part 2, the rescrewing. Lifting off the lock bar there, helping everything to get into position. Now, I'm going to start off by putting in the pivot. Pivot has some, it's T10 from the looks of it. No, T8. T8, yeah. Pivot has some thread lock around there. Is that T10? No, it's just a very shallow T8. All right. Work with this. Maybe even T9 or something weird, but okay, whatever. I'll go ahead and use a little bit of blue thread locker. Blue 242. And pop this into position here. We will, drop that in. And the reason I'm doing this, and I'm going to go ahead and lift off on the pivot there just to get everything, or on the lock bar there, and then tighten mildly the pivot. All right, tighten mildly the pivot. I don't think that construction works in my English. Either way, it works. You understood me. Freaking magic right there. It is really magic that anyone can understand me. All right, so let's go ahead and tighten these two guys back into position here. And we should be, like functionally speaking, we should be good to go here. Centering is dead on, if not slightly favoring show side. Oh, there. That feels way too tight, so I'm going to loosen the pivot up a little bit. It also currently has the ergonomics of a hornet's nest with the hornets. Without the hornets, I imagine a hornet's nest is not so problematic. But no blade play. Oh, there. Again, I'm having trouble here because I can't grip the damn thing right. Really wish the stock were thinner, but that's just an aside. All right, I think we are good to go in terms of action, so now we're going to reinstall all the relevant pieces here. this is the correct side. So I'll lower the G10 into position here. This is tightly milled, tightly positioned, so let's go ahead and put that there. Okay. I'll go ahead and use a little thread locker on the outside screws here. Can't hurt me, might help me. And I'm just grabbing those screws from the designated positionings here. And put that there. Weird construction on this. I mean, weird design generally. It's kind of atypical for Ken Onion, right? This doesn't feel like a Ken Onion. Like, if you told me this was like Brian Dye or something like that, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see that, but not hating. It's just, and frankly, it's interesting to see him outside of his normal style, but this has a couple of more straight edges on it than I expected. So there's that. One of the surreal things about being the jackass that I have become on the channel is actually getting to meet some of these makers and talk with them as humans. Like, I had a chance to chat with Ken Onion recently, knowing full well who I am, and he didn't kill me, and that's nice. But, you know, it's very, very weird at some level to be, you know, to have a conception not just of, you know, the person as a name, but, you know, to talk with them about some of the choices they've made and talk with them about knife design generally. I learn a great deal every time I spend time talking to an actual freaking knife maker. As somebody who is so far from being an actual freaking knife maker, it's not even funny. But, yeah, it's always interesting. There is that. And here is this. And we should be good to go now. Oh, that's better. Actually, you know, having it in a position where I can use it and hold it in my hand again. I have eliminated the lock stick, at least for the moment. We'll see if that comes back, but for the moment, it seems fine. There is no blade play. Much better action. Still a weird freaking knife, but there you go. That's the CRKT Panache. Interesting little piece. Now disassemble for you. So I hope you found this interesting to you, and you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.